Thank you for coming, everybody. My name is Chris. I'm the marketing manager for Planetary and iGUIDE. And today I am doing this webinar with Ali. Ali, why don't you introduce yourself while I mess around with it?
Hey guys, my name is Ali. I'm sure some of you remember me from the last masterclass on social media. I pop around here and there once in a while, but you're probably more, used to Chris. I'm more like a once in a while guy that pops up. So I take care of most of the marketing in Planetary, and I bring any kind of knowledge or things I've learned to you guys over the course of the months.
Cool. Okay. So what we're talking about today is SEO. And before we get into that topic, I just want to address a few things. The first thing is that if you have not yet joined our Facebook group, please do so. So it's the iGUIDE 3D Tour and Floor Plan Creator Group. It's really popular. There's lots of people in there. There's lots of really good conversations. So give that a whirl. And also, please subscribe to us on YouTube. If you do that, you will automatically be notified when we upload new content. So you don't have to pay attention to the masterclass schedule as much. If we create any new ad videos or anything, you'll just be notified when they're made available, which is very cool. There's two really important things that are coming up that I just want to really quickly address. So the first thing is our new viewer update. So we sent out an email for beta testers and it's going live very soon. So you'll get another email, but I just want to show you guys real quick. I can figure out where my browser is. There we go. Can you guys see can you see my screen, Ali? Is this working? Does technology work? You're nodding. I'm going to take that as a yes. So the iGUIDE is going to get a visual refresh. Basically, it's going to go live April 4th, and it's going to change the look and feel a little bit, which is awesome. So it's meant to be, a little bit of a smoother experience, a little bit cooler looking. The functionality is nearly identical. I already did a masterclass on it a while ago to give it a preview, but if you want to try it out, you can go to the forum, before the 4th of April. You can go to the forum and there's a link there in the iGUIDE operators discussion group or whatever. So it tells you about the beta and it gives you a link you can test out if you want. And then you can try it out. Pretty cool. Okay, so the way this is going to work today is that we're going to talk about the basics of SEO. So we're probably going to talk for about 30 minutes and then and give you a general overview. And then after that 30 minutes, you could just ask questions if you want. If there's no questions, we'll just call it there and everyone can have a nap. If there are questions, we'll answer them. Or we may talk past 30 minutes. I don't know. It kind of depends. Either way, questions can be whatever you want. So if they're not strictly speaking SEO related, that's okay. We're cool. You can ask us whatever you want, even weird personal questions. I'm fine with that. So the topic for today, SEO. I'm just going to narrow the scope of this a little bit. So there's a lot of things that go into making a website successful, and SEO is just one of them. So we're going to talk about really optimizing a website so that a search engine will display it when people search for stuff. And then, so we're just going to connect the search engine to the website and I'll propose some suggestions or some things you can do for your website to make it perform better in that way. So we're not going to talk about what happens when people get there. That's a whole separate webinar. And that's really more about conversion and getting people to move through a sales funnel. So that's not what we're going to talk about. It's just SEO and some things you can do on your website. Good news though, it's all really very achievable stuff. It's not like hard things that you need to do. These aren't really that challenging. And there's a few tools that we're going to show you as well. So I'm just going to load up Go iGUIDE, and then you guys can see our cool camera promotion graphic. And then what we'll do is we will kind of go through things. So before we go through all of the tips, we have 10 because everybody likes top 10 lists. So we made 10. Let's talk about why you should care about SEO. So if you're here, you must care because otherwise you wouldn't be watching us right now. But I'm going to tell you why anyway, just to justify the effort that you're going to put in. So when you make a website, people have to get to it for it to do whatever its job is. So that job could be a whole bunch of different things, right? Maybe it's a scheduling system for you so people can book appointments. Maybe it's a payment portal so people can buy things from you. Maybe it's just a brochure. so that people can see who you are, so that when you show up to work for them or whatever, they know what you look like. I don't know. There's lots of different things that a website can do. But if no one ever gets there, all that work is useless. And we've noticed over the years that a lot of people spend just an enormous amount of time building and crafting and thinking about their website, especially when they start their business, but then periodically through, like business growth, as your business gets bigger, your website doesn't really fit anymore. So it grows too. And, but they don't pay a whole lot of attention to how people are getting there, and, and what, what the website is supposed to provide for people who are looking for essentially a solution to their problems. So there's lots of ways to get people to a website. Okay. You can physically tell someone to go there. That would be unique. I don't think people do that anymore. You can post content on social. And so people, might be incentivized to go to your website to see something, maybe if they're on Facebook, they see you post something. You can run ads. Ads are, a great way to try to get people to go to your website for reasons. But what we're talking about today is, the link provided for this webinar was invalid for me. Oh, I don't know. We'll look into that. I'm not sure where the link was sent to per se. I will check that. Sorry. Yeah, just a little tangent there.
Okay.
Either way, so what we're going to talk about today is SEO. So that's people specifically searching Google, although this kind of works for any search engine. The other ones just don't really matter as much. And finding your website in the search results. So search engine optimization can be kind of distilled down, if you just want to describe it in a certain way, as modifying your website so that in the Google search results, it is placed higher, So the ideal being the very first thing right after, right on the front page. Well, that's probably achievable for some things and maybe not for others. We'll get into that. Google is a business, and they make money off their searches by running ads. So you can do your best to rank your site, just optimize it so well, and you may still not appear on the front page because people are running ads on whatever keywords or whatever that you're trying to rank for. But like, I'm just going to say it because maybe people take it for granted. Maybe I take it for granted that people know this, but the ideal is that you want to be on the first page of results, because anything beyond that is kind of pointless. Like, people don't typically go through multiple pages. Maybe they do occasionally, but not as often as they just pick the first thing that they see on the front page. So the goal here is to try to get your pages to rank on that page. And that has a lot to do with a few things that we'll get into later. So that's, keywords and search intent and a few other things. So we'll talk about that. But basically, the benefit here to you is that if you properly optimize your website, when people are searching for the thing that you are providing, they will find you organically in the search results, but you don't have to pay for. So if your site is set up correctly, people will just find you. Which is cool. And if people are finding you in that way, there's a very high likelihood that you are providing what they are looking for. So that means that, although we're not going to talk about it, that means that they're more likely to convert in some, but not all cases. So that's it. So it's good. It's good. It's a good kind of traffic. It's the kind of people that you want. So that's the benefit. Get people to your website. And that's, ideally like paying clients. I don't know if that's obvious or not. So let's talk about some things that you can do to your website. Again, we could talk for days about this stuff. So this is going to be a really quick overview, and we're just going to ping pong, knock it back and forth, Ali and I, and we'll talk about this stuff. So the first thing we're going to talk about is site speed. And this is something that is outrageously achievable by anybody because it has nothing to do with messaging or keywords or anything else. This is changing things on your website to make it load faster. So Ali, why don't you talk about some things that can be loaded on the website faster, and I'll load up a cool demo.
Yeah. So, one thing we do, or I do sometimes, is that we reduce, like, for example, if you're uploading images, we condense the size of the image completely, or the video itself. So less than a couple of MBs, or hopefully one less than MB. So that can help load the site. And the whole idea is that you don't want anyone waiting for the site to load because they get bored and they jump out. And this is a very common thing you've noticed. And a lot of, you can find articles and articles about these online. You want to make sure anyone who's coming to your site has a seamless experience as possible so that everything loads quickly, they're not bored. And, you know, if, for example, anything's taking too long to load, they just bounce, and that affects your bounce rate. And that also tells Google that you shouldn't be ranked higher as other sites. So it really impacts your search engine optimization as well.
So there are tools you can use. I have one on screen right now. Hopefully you guys can see it. You can use to measure site speed. So the good news about this is that you don't really need to overthink it. Like, it sounds complicated. You go in there and you optimize your images and you remove JavaScript, and it can be complicated. But just figuring out kind of the things that you need to do is totally not complicated. So I've just used a tool called GT Metrics. I don't know if you guys can see the URL, but it's, if you Google GT Metrics, it'll come up. So you can run your site. You can put your site in the little URL thing there, and then click, you know, whatever it says, test or something. And it'll tell you how long it takes for your site to load. It'll give you a score. So I chose Pepsi.com because I'm thirsty right now. I'm just a big fan of Pepsi lately. It's not a product placement. They don't give me any money for this, but you know. So I write, and now I'm like, sponsorship idea, load up products in our demos. Anyway, so I loaded up the site, and what it's done is it's told me, you know, so how long it takes to load, it's giving me a score. But if you scroll down, it tells you the things that you can change. So the most common thing on like every website is resizing fairly large assets. So again, if you're not technical, that's okay, because this is something you could easily hand off to someone else. A lot of websites too, especially the you know, sort of what do you call it, like, what you see is what you get, builder sites like Wix and Squarespace, they automatically do a lot of this stuff.
Fun builders. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they'll optimize most of this stuff anyway. So it's actually pretty cool. You don't really have to try that hard. But if you look here for Pepsi.com, they're loading a Pepsi Wild Cherry 15.mp4 that's 1.88 megabytes. So that's, I mean, there's some very large files that they've got loading up on their website. Now, Pepsi doesn't care because people are going to go to their website anyway. So they can get away with the fact that load times are going to be quite high. I think Ali made this point already, but I was doing this thing, so I wasn't really paying attention. But when people go to your website, the actual load time will be analyzed by Google, and they're gonna, the faster your page is, the higher up you go. But that's also affected by bounce rate. Did you mention that already?
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So I won't mention it again, but you want that to be low, because you don't want people to go to your page and then immediately go, that's terrible, and then leave. So if the load times are really long, that's exactly what they do. And I myself am very impatient. I will wait 1/2 of a second for a page to load, and if it doesn't, I'm out. I was loading up a drone page the other day, and it was like, it was like 17 seconds till I saw something on the page. I was like, 17 seconds. Like an eternity.
Exactly. We should definitely have like a masterclass on funnels and how to keep people on your site. That's a whole,
that's a whole other.
But site speed is one big one, obviously, in messaging and how you place your, you know, your position in the site.
Yeah, above the full bullet flow. I had considered doing one just on CRO because we have that, we you know, that book or whatever, and I could reference it. Anyway, we can do that. That'll be cool.
We'll talk about it.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so here's some other things for site speed. So Pepsi didn't really have a whole lot, but there's images can be, you know, compressed. I think we already talked about that. Video can either be replaced with static images or compressed. Complex plugins and cool animations like look awesome, but they tend to increase load times. An enormous amount of content also increases load times, which is funny because people tend to just kind of, they either do like really short landers or really long, ever scrolling endless pages. And sometimes they're not, that's not a good idea. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off, but like you mentioned video. One hack I found is I just replaced them with GIFs. They're so much more simpler and easier, and they do almost the same thing, right? You technically don't need large videos unless you're selling some really high quality products. If you're doing some basic services, like pictures and GIFs are fine.
To get that kinetic, interesting motion on your site, to make it look like dynamic, GIFs are really fun because you can lower them to like 3 frames a second and often get the same thing you would get from a video, but from something that's significantly smaller. It's also really easy to work with because it's just an image. You can kind of put it wherever you want.
Or another hack is just like send them to a YouTube page where your videos stay, right? There's no need to actually embed your video on your site.
That's true. There's also quite a few tricks with regards to lazy loading. So lazy loading means that as soon as you load the page, the thing that you've put on the page, like a video or something else, doesn't immediately load. So fun fact with iGUIDEs will lazy load, which means if you embed an iGUIDE in your page, it won't immediately load all the assets unless you tell it to. So in the embedding tool, you can go in and there's a checkbox, you can turn that off. So it's kind of cool. Anyway, site speed. We'll have to keep moving because we're running out of time. If you want to like dig into your website, go to this tool, put your website in, click scan or whatever the button is, and then just read through all the suggestions that they give you. And there's lots of other tools like this. Google has one as well. They're mostly going to pick on your media, like your images, but there's other stuff in here too. Sometimes it's like JavaScript related or whatever. And that I would say by far is probably the easiest thing, one of the easiest things you can do for your site, because although it's a little technical, like I suspect most of you who are listening are like photographers, so you can edit your own images. So that means that it's not really as big a problem for you to take your images, download them, recompress them, put them back up again, and kind of fiddle with it. So that the barrier to entry there should be quite low for most of you because you have Photoshop. Cool. Okay, next on the list is
keywords, long tail, short, my favorite. So
keywords are funny. Yeah.
They're weird, honestly, and they're you need them, but you don't really need them, but you do need them. It's kind of weird. But we use SEMRush, Chris and I. It's a tool you can use to analyze keywords, monitor competition, see where they rank, and you can use the same keywords for your ads as well, and paper ad for Word. So if you want to do it more organically, I would 100% request you guys to go ahead, get yourself some kind of analyzing tool like SEMrush, Ahrefs, whatever it is. It gives you access to what's working, what's trending, and what's not. And oh yeah, there it is. Like this is the one we use. Let's put in something like Pepsi.com, right? So that's a very generic keyword. And you can tell right away, like look at the traffic, the authority score is 65. So you can't really beat that.
There's 4 million backlinks.
Yeah, that's insane, right?
That just makes me sad. Like what? That's crazy.
That is crazy. And we'll get to the backlinks as well later in a few minutes. But the idea is that you can type in any keyword in their URL. Chris, can you go down to keyword overview, left side, on the go up a bit more. Keep going. You see right under keyword research. You see, yeah. Let's give them an example, because this is definitely my favorite tool. Let's type in real estate photography on the search. Even that's a very generic word. You want to be as specific as possible. Okay, so volume in Canada, you get 6.k searches per month. I believe that's per month. Global volume throughout the entire world pretty much is 26.4k, and difficulty 64%. That's pretty hard to score. So you got to be really on top of your game if you want to do something like real estate photography. Not saying it's impossible, but you can still definitely go ahead and do that, right? And it gives you more information. Like, let's say if you want to run ads on the right side, it'll tell you cost per click. So you'll be paying $3.54 for every person clicking on your site based on that keyword. So it can add up. You want to aim for something that's in the cents, like 40 or 50 cents, if budget yourself. At the bottom, it also tells you pretty cool, similar words you can use as well. Like let's say real estate photography, Toronto, Vancouver, real estate photography. So there are so many things you can kind of find from tools like these. So get yourself like a tool like this. It's pretty inexpensive, I would say, and it gives you a good idea of what to use. And then once you find your keyword that you want to stand out, I recommend more, less generic as possible. So something more niched into what you guys do. So if you're, let's say, Kitchener-Waterloo, base it out that. If you guys offer a certain service, base it out that, right? And then just write content, write static information on your site so it shows up on every page. And make sure that you use it as much as possible, because 1 or 2 blogs are not going to rank you, but it's going to be the consistent effort over time from using certain keywords that Google will recognize your site as the authority. So, that's one way you can go. You can do that organically as well.
Yeah, let's bring it back to the kind of the reason for the keywords for a second, then we'll get technical again. So when you are selecting keywords, what you're trying to do is you're trying to let or modify your pages so that when people are searching, you're capitalizing on what people are calling or what is called like search intent. So if someone's searching for real estate photography, that's pretty generic, obviously, but if they're searching for that, you want them to find your site, right? So that means that your site literally needs to have the words real estate photography on the pages, otherwise it won't rank. So keywords is more than just like a word or a couple words. It's really terms that people are searching for. You don't need the full thing, like who is the best real estate photographer, in the world or whatever. But there are, to the point that, or Ali mentioned earlier, there's long and there's sort of short versions. But for the most part, what you're trying to do is capitalize on search intent. So if you find all this very like intimidating and it's not your jam, you don't need to really use a tool like this right away. Eventually you should engage with it, but you might be doing that through someone else. I'll get to that in a second. But the goal is to kind of have a think, okay, what are people searching for on Google that would help them find me? Like what solution do I provide to their problem? And so I think you did mention it, Ali. Usually it's a local thing for businesses. It's kind of like real estate photography Dallas, or real estate photography Windsor, or something like that.
It's better to stand out and make yourself as unique as possible. So, if you can rank for real estate photography, try something else that's more unique about you. Maybe you do real estate photography, iGUIDE tours, kitchen Waterloo. That's a long tail keyword, but that sets you apart from just real estate photography.
So fun fact, SEMRush. So if you find this a little intimidating and you're like, I don't know if I can handle that, they have free trials. You can use it for like a week or two. So if you want to just like get it and analyze your website and just kind of like mess around, you don't even need to pay. It's pretty cool. There's lots of other tools too. There's Ahrefs and Uber Suggest and a few other ones. I don't remember the names, but
or you can just use Google Keyword Planner. That's a basic tool.
This is true. Yeah, absolutely.
It's free.
So I'm just gonna add a little bit of extra information so that everyone's on the right path here. Okay, so the way keywords work is that you're not trying to insert keywords into content that to like game the system. That's a common misconception. So it's not like, I mean, maybe in like the 90s you did that, put real estate photography like 1,000 times on the page. Google's smart. Google knows what they're doing, and they're trying to serve up the most valuable information for people based on their searches, right? So they know based on the page structure whether you're really doing that or you're just keyword stuffing, which is just a fancy way of saying just slap a bunch of keywords in there. So when you're deciding on how to what language to use, because that's all keywords is just different language on your pages so that people find you, think about it in terms of the way the page is, and this is going to affect the points from now on, the way the page is laid out and the kind of content that you're producing. So the way that you get your keywords to work is that you put your keywords in your page consistently, and they're part of like valuable content in your page. And they're basically used, that's my wife. Should I take it in the middle of a webinar? I can't tell if anyone's saying yes. Anyway, I won't. I'll call her back in a minute. So the content that you're creating needs to be valuable. You just can't slap real estate photography on your page like 55 times. That was my point. But people often they misinterpret keywords as being things that need to be on the page, but it's more than that. They need to be on the page, but they need to be part of some sort of content. So for example, real estate photography Dallas isn't enough. You need to write a paragraph about your business. Like, I've been working in this industry for 17 years, and I, have been working in real estate photography in Dallas for the last 6. I'm really, active in the Dallas real estate photography area, or something like that. You know what I mean? It's in context of some good content or copy, not just randomly slapped on a page.
Okay. You can't just like repeat that word 20 times on the page.
Okay, but that being said, you do need to include it. So one thing that we've learned at iGUIDE Plantar is that it's not good enough to have your keyword on a page like once or twice. It really needs to be drowning in that keyword or key phrase that you have. So, and that'll affect again the other points that we're going to get to before we run out of time here. so it needs to be in the paragraphs, it needs to be in the headings, it needs to be in the slug, it needs to be, 3 or 4 times in the page. It needs to be there. Those keywords need to be there a lot. So another common misconception is that you slap all the keywords in. You know what I mean? You come up with like 25 key phrases, you put them all on there. That doesn't work either. Google's too smart. So that works more than just stuffing the keywords. But what you typically want to do is focus a page and the content around one thing that people are searching for. So if they think, okay, people are going to be looking for a real estate photographer in Dallas, that is a worthy thing to include in a lot of your copy. And if you've got maybe a secondary key phrase, that makes sense. So you think also people might be looking for drone services Dallas or something like that. Okay, cool. But you can't just keep going. You can't have a page that just targets everything, so the whole internet shows up. But again, bounce rate is important here. So when people show up, you want them to see what they're searching for. Otherwise, they'll just leave, and your keyword work will all be for naught if people don't stay on your page. Okay, cool.
Chris, somebody's asking a question. I think you pretty much answered it. Is it better to have more pages on a site or more data on a few pages? Jonathan asked this. It's a very good question. More data or more pages? I don't think it's either or. It doesn't really matter, I think.
Well, so the conversation gets more complicated once you start thinking about what happens after people show up. So if you can create a page that targets a specific search intent and people show up, well, why would you need more? Just optimize it, make it better. But pages start to work together. So if you can provide content like a blog that targets a key phrase that's similar to but slightly adjacent to what your main page is targeting, people show up to your blog and then they're in your funnel and then they can move over to your main page. You have to sculpt your pages so that you have multiple key phrases on different pages and they're all hitting different things. That's why. So in terms of sort of product pages, if you think people are searching for iGUIDE in your area, then I think you could probably double that up. It would depend on what products you're offering, to be honest. It depends on how complicated it is. But as pages get bigger, load times go up, so SEO ranking goes down. So, I mean, if it's just text, you're fine. But once you start to include images, maybe a targeted page might be better. And then it depends on if you're selling directly from your website. Because again, this isn't a conversation for today, but you want to put as few steps between people and buying something as possible. Just don't make them work for it. If you can send them via SEO directly to the page where they can click book and they can book an iGUIDE, then do it. Like, you know what I mean? But again, that's a separate thing. So sorry, let's move on to the next thing because it's about keywords. So I mentioned this earlier, or maybe Ali did, I forget. You have headings on web pages, and those headings are typically like called H1, H2, and H3, and they are in order of importance, as in 1 is more important than 2, and 2 is more important than 3. So Wix has these, Square, like all the website builders have these. But if you look in the backend HTML, they're just called those, and that's a carryover from a long time ago when people had to write this stuff out. People often confuse these with formatting. So with some builders, website builders, H1 will have a different look than H2, but that's not exactly what they're for, although that is true. That is what they do. In terms of hierarchy, yes, there's a different look and feel for headings, whether they're H1, H2, or H3, but those are prioritized by Google differently. So if you have a key phrase or keyword that you're using, it needs to be in the H1. So your main heading on your page, the very first thing people read, needs to say whatever you think is important and what you think they're searching for. So if that's real estate photography Dallas, and that needs to be straight up in the header. So people often get very clever. They think, oh, I'll put a question in there. I'll do something that's kind of interesting or funny. And like, you totally go ahead and do that, but you need to get that key phrase into that header and potentially into multiple headers if you can, because Google likes that, because it says to Google, okay, this thing is important because it's on the page and it's in this H1. So if you compare different sizes of texts on the page, the hierarchy is really obvious. An H1 is big text, big, bold, fancy, well, it's big, it's important. And then H2s are like slightly smaller. And then H3s are slightly smaller than that. And then body text is even smaller than that. So the size of the text, although that's not strictly speaking what Google is looking at, really reflects the importance of that text in terms of how Google sees it. So your H1s are big and you want to have your key phrases in there. You want key phrases and all that stuff, but you need to make sure they're in the H1. If you if you go and you have an SEO audit done by a company, that's like the most irritating thing. They're going to go through all your headings and be like, oh, you didn't put the key phrase in the H1, and you're going to kick yourself. So make sure to do that because it's super embarrassing. Did that make sense, Ali? Did I get that?
Yep. Let's get into my favorite part. Slugs, but not the slow kind you see on the wall. Like these are actual proper.
Oh, good segue. Holy moly. That was pro. I'm impressed.
I was thinking about this for a bit. Now I'm joking. So slugs, basically, I'm wondering if you can somehow show them what it looks like. Okay. So this would probably, like, even on this side. Okay, so I'm not sure you guys can see that.
I don't know if you can see it, but the slug is goiguide.com/plan-expects, which is right. Whatever.
So slugs basically, ideally, the best practice is you should include at least a part or a partial keyword in your slug, but that doesn't mean you include the entire whole tail or massive keyword in your slug. You cut it down and focus it down. So for example, if your keyword is real estate photography in Dallas, you're not going to put the entire long sentence in your slug. What you're going to do is you're going to optimize it and focus on a few words from that keyword. So for example, Dallas photography, that could be part of the slug itself. So that's one big one, right? Another thing is that you want to make sure you optimize your websites and your slugs, because that's what kind of people search. And if that's something that pops up, not only do they click on it, but Google also optimizes it on search intent. So you want to make sure all your pages that are going to have slugs should be optimized and have at least one keyword per page, and it makes sure it's focused and it's permanent. So that's one thing I see a lot of people make mistakes on, is that they put the entire keyword in the slug and it looks really bad. I think it's personally, and from research, it shows that cut it down and make it more focused, and that's really going to help you out.
Yeah, you're going to hear the same thing over and over with regards to everything we say for now, because it's basically like you need to make sure your keywords, key phrase are in your headings. You need to make sure that they're in your slug, the URL that you use. And carrying that forward, every page has a title and a meta description. And the key phrase needs to be, or keywords, whatever you're using, need to be in that title and that meta description. So here, actually, I'll show you what those look like. So here, we'll go to Google and we'll search for Pepsi. I don't know why I'm using Pepsi. It's fun. Okay,
so getting so much free. Like,
I know, they better send me a free case, eh? So Google wants to know my location. Yeah, sure, of course. Okay, so here's the really easy to see. You can see the slug on Google. I hope you guys can see this. Pepsi.ca, in Canada. And then we have the page title, Welcome to Pepsi. And then we have the meta description. They've got some more stuff here, but that's a bit complicated. Really, every page, regardless of what website builder you're using, is going to give you the ability to have a page title and a meta description. And most of them will let you monkey with the slug a bit, but it kind of depends. Right. But each one of those needs to not only like communicate to someone why they would want to click on this link, but it also needs to include that target keyword or key phrase. If it's not there, it'll come up.
Chris, could you keep going down? I want to see if there's another slug we can find here for Pepsi.
Oh yeah, probably.
So it's just Pepsi.com.
Twitter for Pepsi. Pepsi's a bad example, right?
I mean, that does work in a way. So for example, here, so Pepsi.com.
Oh, there you go. That's one. Yeah.
Brand product information. There's Pepsi. No, same thing. So you see like how it says contact.pepsico.com. So, it doesn't say contact us or give us a call about Pepsi.com. It's just simple contact.pepsi.com. So make sure you hyper focus it, use that keyword, and make it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
Google loves that. They're going to rank you number one, most likely.
Yeah, just to clarify on the meta description. So that's like a little paragraph that you can add in. There are character limits. I can't remember off the top of my head what they are, but typically you try to
less than 100. So it's pretty small.
They're pretty small. Yeah. I would say that this is the number one thing people forget to add. Like they'll remember the page title because it names the page in most website builders, but then people don't remember to put this in. I mean, we've done that lots of times. Either way, if someone can read the title and then read a quick description, that's huge. That really shows them like, hey, this is what we offer. This is what we're providing. This is why you want to click here. And then they do it. Okay. We're cruising. We're moving on now. What's the next thing?
Next one is
images.
Oh, I hate these.
Images. Images are important, and you're probably all photographers, you know this. So because you're probably drowning in images. So you need images on a page. Google rewards you for having, images on a page just in general. But images, it's not as simple as just make an image and toss it up there. You need to name them. Let's go back to, do I still have GT Metrics open? Let's look at Pepsi. Let's see what they're.
Yeah, I think they have some alt texts over here. You can check.
Oh yeah, here's some. So
there you go.
So Pepsi's done a terrible job of naming their images. So here's the interesting about images. When people search on Google, there's an image thing at the top, right? So if I go up here and I click on images, images will come up. So this is a viable way for people to search for stuff. If we want to get fancy, we can go to YouTube and talk about that, but that's kind of outside of the Google search. But sometimes what happens is that your images will get picked up and will be found instead of the actual website. So it behooves you to name your images correctly so that they can come up in a search. So rather than just name it some kind of code like 3CP5-2556PX or whatever, name your images like, I don't know, real estate photography iGUIDE Dallas house front.jpg. And then when people search, sometimes people are just looking for a picture and it'll come up and they'll click and then they'll go to the website from the image. And there can be done from the file name itself, or in some cases, what's called an alt tag, which is a way of adding extra text that identifies the image for search engines. And so that's a lot of like extra work to do that on the back end. But if you're building your website right now, if you just get in the habit of adding those alt tags and naming your images properly, it's very worthwhile. But think about it in the sense that those images can pull people in as well. They're also something that's searchable, if that makes any sense. I hope it does. Naming alt tags. Is there anything else for images, Ali? Did I miss anything?
We mentioned this before as well. Make sure your images are sizable and small, and because that affects your load time as well. Yeah. And make sure you use high quality images. Like nothing sets a bad taste in the mouth than having a really blurry or low resolution image. So it's a lot about user experience as well, and as well as working with Google closely. So look at your competitor sites, see the ones that are doing really good in the market, and see how they're using their images. That's how I would do it.
All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is links. So there's lots of different types of links. The most important type of links, we're just going to address it right off the bat, is backlinks. So that's a fancy way of saying other people who have linked to your website. So when you first start, you'll have no backlinks, 0 backlinks. And you can use tools like SEMRush and Ahrefs to measure that. Backlinks are kind of a long strategy, and I'll explain what I'm talking about and why they're important. So Google prioritizes sites that are linked to by other sites. And also they're going to prioritize sites that are linked to by important sites. So, if your friend down the street has a personal page and like MySpace, does that still exist? And links to your webpage, it's a backlink, but it's not any good. If like Forbes or the New York Times or a .org or something else links to your site, that's huge, because those are really big, powerful websites. And so Google says, oh, that's cool. I see what you've done there. You've got a .edu, like you've got a university linking to your site. Yeah. And so that's going to boost you up in the rankings, because that says to Google, oh, this website's legit. This is important. So building backlinks takes time. You don't get them right away, and people don't link to you unless they have a reason to do it. Mm-hmm. So a good reason to do it is when you create quality content that other people link to. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But the other reason is that you've worked with people who just agree to link to you for some reason. So let's suppose you have a university and they've agreed to shoot, you're going to go shoot one of their campuses or something. So you could just provide them with the iGUIDE tour or whatever content you're making. But if you can get them to give you a backlink in some way, that's absolutely massive. That's going to boost your website up considerably. And it's just a link someone else made on their website that just goes to yours. You'll get a little traffic. Hopefully.
But yeah, that's not the point.
The traffic doesn't even matter. It's sort of funny. So you're trying to get that backlink just to get the SEO juice.
Right. And one more thing, you can pay a lot of these sites like Forbes, for example, to feature an article about you. A lot of like these businesses do that as well. Get paid free. I don't recommend it because you want to be organic as possible. But if you're starting out, you need that extra boost. get featured, pay for it. It works 100%.
Yeah, I'll give you a fun hack we learned a while ago. If you create like a press release about your business and then put it out on like pr.com and add a couple links, people will just pick it up. News agencies, they don't really review very much. They just kind of pick them up, and they're not like the best backlinks, but they're better than nothing. So that's kind of fun.
A more cool hack I would recommend would be definitely get on YouTube and start making content there and start linking back and forth to that, because surprisingly, not many people know YouTube is actually the biggest search engine in the world, not Google, because there are more people on YouTube searching content every day.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at earlier with the images. I was like, videos, that's the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you can somehow like get a page or like be featured on, let's say, someone's article or YouTube video and they link you back, that's a big boost as well, depending how much traffic's coming through that.
So backlinks are their own whole thing. It's a long-term strategy. It usually involves connecting with people and getting them to link to you because you have some kind of arrangement or quality content. We could have a whole webinar just on backlinks. So it's just kind of something to bear in mind when you're working with clients. Try to get backlinks if you can. Hey, can you link to my site on your site? Type of thing. Often that's all that's required. Yeah.
Internal and external links.
Yeah. So Google likes it when you, and you should do it anyway because it's good, when you have lots of links on a page that go to places, right? Because then it's kind of like rich content. It's not a brochure, it's an interactive experience. So Google likes, for some reason, a couple outside links in addition to some internal links. So it's a good idea when you make a page to link to other pages on your site. That's it. Sometimes they call it link sculpting, where like you take your pages and you connect them together. If your page isn't super complicated, you're not going to have a whole lot of things to link to. But when you have a copy that sort of references something, it's nice to include a link there because it does make the experience better. So yes, technically on your menu bar, you have an about page, 100%. But if you reference yourself and something that is local and is mentioned on the about page, you could link to it from inside some copy, for example, on your page. And then you've got an internal link that goes from one page to another, even though there already was one elsewhere. But it helps in that experience because people are in that content and they're looking at it and they see the link and then they can click on it. But Google also likes external links. So sometimes it's a good idea to link out to things. I mean, not like your competition, but relevant information. Hot tip, you don't want them to leave the page. So have it open a separate window when they click on it rather than take them off your site. You don't want that.
Exactly. And here's a quick little hack I've learned over the years is that if you have multiple things going on, let's say you have social media, you're on YouTube, you have blogs, link them like in a circle in a way. Let's say your blog goes to your YouTube page and your YouTube page goes to your website. And then there's a link on your website that goes to your social media. And then your social media goes back to your YouTube, something around like a web. So they're always interconnected and they're never really leaving basically your content.
Yeah, keeping people in the funnel. Yep, that's awesome.
Basically, that's the idea. And that also really helps SEO in the sense that you're getting links as well as you're sending people back and forth. So that creates traffic as well.
Staying on your site longer too. My favorite thing we do it sometimes, but that I see is when you have you're engaging with some kind of content that's good, and then at the bottom or somewhere in there, there's like links to more content you might also like. Like I'm lazy, I don't want to search for stuff, so I much prefer the Netflix version where I watch a show and then they're like, here's like 8 more you might like. I'm like, oh, thanks. So I mean, those are just internal links. They're things you can click on, and it's quite common for us anyway to link on our pages to like features when we reference them. So anytime we say floor plans, we'll link to the floor plan page, or anytime we reference, pricing, we'll link to the pricing page or whatever. Okay, moving on, we're running out of time. What do we got next? Oh, quality content. So I've already said this multiple times. Google, their algorithms are like weird voodoo magic. They know if your content is good. I don't know how. So that means that they're really going to prioritize content that is providing valuable information. And it's a mix, right? It's like copy, keywords. You're going to have maybe videos and images and extra things that make it look more robust. But if you really want, there's no gaming here. It's if you really want people to, go to your site, give them the information that they're looking for and make it good. And it's just like everything will work if you do that. So if you create, for example, a blog post about an event that you shot where they were going to bulldoze a building, and you went in and scanned the iGUIDE. You did an iGUIDE before the building was destroyed, and then you use that for historical. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But if you create a whole blog article about that, and then you optimize it for a couple key phrases, usually location based, that's quality content. That's stuff people want to read. That's something that would probably get picked up by someone else and shared. There's your backlinks. That's content that Google is going to see has lots of meat on it. And you maybe include some images or some video. And that's something that would keep people on your site reading for a while. So that means your bounce rate will be lower. And that gives you lots of opportunities for keywords, like if the building had a name or there was a builder involved. But often that type of content needs you to think on the front end about making it before you get to the point where you're optimizing it for SEO. It's way too late at that point. Usually you think about it in terms of, okay, I've got this thing coming up. This would make really great content. I should make this content to pull people in off the internet and bring them into my sales funnel. And you could think of it in real world terms, like someone's going to go, they're going to see that I did this thing in this area, and they're going to see the credibility. Oh, I've been working in this area. I'm a real estate photographer or a person documenting spaces. I participated in this project. Lots of name drops in there. They're going to think I should hire this person for my next shoot, and then make it easy for them. The book now button's right available there somewhere, and so that content pulled them in and then sent them over to buy.
Yeah, there's a weird, like, Google is so smart, man. Like, there's a weird algorithm as well.
Sure.
So it knows, like Chris, you mentioned this, like it knows the kind of content you're making in a way. So, and one of the ways is that it analyzes what people are searching versus what your site's offering. So if 100 people are searching a few keywords or something about a certain, like, let's say, area or some whatever, it would crawl your website, pick out exactly what you're offering and what you're saying, and it would match that. So if it's a lot more than just putting content, but it has to match exactly what's in demand, right? So if the trends right now are, let's say, selling my house or real estate photography virtually because of COVID, whatever it is, and your site talks about that, it would pick it up. It has a weird algorithm, but it is super smart.
It's true. Every time we say that, Google pays us a little bit of money. Google's great. Praise Google. So, all right. So here's the last point. We're going to bring it home now. So there's a lot of details. We already kind of did this, but there's a lot of details here in SEO and it's complicated and weird, and you don't know where to start, and it's overwhelming, right? So there are lots of tools that you can use to do like a whole site audit to make your life easy. So the GTmetrix one was just for site speed. But if you use something like SEMRush that we talked about, I don't know where it is in here, but there's like a whole site audit, and you can just do like a scan, and it will basically just go through and give you a zillion suggestions. So so that's my suggestion, is don't worry about all the little details that we just told you. Obviously, I'm sure you all took notes or whatever. Oh, there's a recording available as well. You can watch this again if you want. But basically do a site audit and let it do the work for you. And it'll go through your whole site, and it will give you a big list of to-dos. And then think about some of the things that you can do yourself, and then just do those. The images is the one I kind of always think of, because you're all kind of imaging people. And then if you want to tackle the other ones, go for it. And if not, that's something you could easily hand off to like an SEO specialist. So it's very common to have people who work in SEO who this is all they do. They go into sites, they fix broken links, they suggest changes to your link structure, they'll do keyword research for you. But working with those people can be complicated and overwhelming. So if you use the tool and you familiarize yourself ahead of time, that means if you do engage with an SEO expert who's going to help you, you're like way better off and more knowledgeable. You don't have to rely on what they tell you necessarily. But there's certain things that are easier to do on your own versus having someone else do it. So I'll give you an example. Keyword research can be very challenging. So what I mean by that is that using a tool like SEMrush that you can see on screen right now, you can go find what people are searching for. Sounds awesome, right? Cool. So you can go find what people are searching for, and then you can just give them that. But that's not how it works. So you don't just give people what they want. You have to give them the information that they're looking for, to solve their problems, and proposing that you are the solution. So for example, I could make a website that really targets people looking for floor plan software. Okay. And I could get them on my site, But as soon as they start reading the content, they're going to realize I don't provide floor plan software. I'm a photographer and I'm shooting and I'm making floor plans. So they don't want what I have and they're gone. And that although I get more traffic, the bounce rate's really high. So that hurts me. So keywords, it's not about gaming necessarily. It's about kind of understanding what people are looking for and making really subtle tweaks. So if people are searching for example, specifically floor plans, that's quite a broad general term. I don't know if I could really get a lot of traffic there, but maybe using a tool like this, I determine that people are really looking for ANSI floor plans. Okay, well, that's different. That's a different set of search keywords, right? So maybe I game my page, or I not game it, sorry, optimize my page for ANSI floor plans, which is what iGUIDE provides, ANSI compatible floor plans. Cool, there you go. So these tools are not meant to give you like insight into the minds of people so that you can specifically exploit them. They're meant so that you can tailor your message to be accurate so that when people are searching for things, they're finding you as a solution. I hope that makes sense. That was a lot. Okay. That was the final. Do you have anything, Ellie, anything to add to that? No. Okay, we're good.
No, I think we pretty much covered everything. Let's just start taking questions.
Yeah, if you guys have any
questions, just jump right in. The floor is open.
We'll just awkwardly sit here and stare at each other. You guys don't have to ask any questions if you don't want. Okay.
You can just
well, there's lots of stuff coming up. So there's the new viewers coming up. There's ANSI thing. Did you guys hear about that? Did I bring that up off the top, Ali? Or did I forget?
No, let's go into it.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about ANSI. Let me load up my page real quick. Hold on. So, there is one question. Is there a simple way to see an overview of your website? For instance, look at the headings. Yes, there is. So a lot of the tools that we talked about will give you a sitemap, which is essentially a big old list of all your pages, all the URLs, all of the titles, and all of the metadata. There's a zillion tools to do that. We used to use one called Spider SEO, I want to say. Screaming Frog Spider. Yeah, this is it. It's got a good name. Okay, but it's awesome. This is really good software. So this is a desktop sort of thing. It's not an online thing, but you can use this software to basically crawl your whole website, and it will basically generate for you a big old list in a CSV that you could export, and so you can edit things if you want. And it'll tell you, but it basically will identify pages without meta descriptions, which is super handy. And then it'll show you when you've got duplicate titles, I think. I can't recall. Either way, it's free up to like, I think 500 URLs or something. So it's a great option. Any advice on robot.txt, or is it out of scope? It's a little out of scope. Most of the time what happens is that it depends on the service that you're using for generating separate files that are used. And you're going to have plugins and stuff. I'm not an expert on that anyway. We probably have to have Brandon for that. But
yeah, one more thing I would say is that you want to be careful with that, because it could overload your site if you let Google just crawl your site too much. So that's one thing to keep in mind as well.
Well, we use a thing where we no index a lot of pages, and Google doesn't like that. It makes it upset. And it comes up on all our site audits, and we're like, no.
It's hard to please Google. It's like they're very demanding and everything.
Was that didn't sound like a positive statement. We're not going to get a kickback for that. Let me say nice things about Google, right?
They're listening.
There you go. Here, I'm going to show you guys this. Okay, so just real quick in the last couple of minutes we have. So if you're in Canada, it doesn't mean much, but if you're in the United States, Fannie Mae is, and this came up on the Facebook group, I think Tacey posted a thing. Either way, the Fannie Mae is going to require ANSI measurements as of April 1st for their mortgage appraisals. So if you want a mortgage through Fannie Mae, your appraisal has to have the house measured and floor plans done to ANSI standards. Good news, iGUIDE totally provides ANSI compatible floor plans. So how awesome is that? So we're kind of investigating here or there with people, and we're kind of talking about it. And there's not a lot of hype surrounding this, but it is a fun question to ask, because people, they don't really appreciate a problem until they actually have a problem. So it's not a problem yet. So I could foresee this being a bigger problem as of, say, maybe the first, second, third week of April, we'll say. And so what this literally means to you, if it's not clear, is that during the closing process, when a mortgage, or when an appraisal needs to be done of the property for a mortgage approval, when measurements are done, they need to be ANSI compatible. So that means that Because if you've shot an iGUIDE, you have ANSI compatible measurements. That means that mortgage appraisal can just use those measurements. You don't need to have another one done. So that greatly, or well, it can in theory speed up the closing process. So the house can just sell faster because you can get financing faster, and it just makes things go quicker. So that's like an enormous benefit. We're pretty excited about it. And there's a page that I put on screen and then forgot to share. Give me a second. Okay, can you guys see my ANSI page here? Yeah. So we have a page that kind of talks about this stuff. I think I put a link already on the Facebook group if you guys are on there. It's good incentive to go. But there's a link to Fannie Mae's, their whole thing about it. So you can read it if you want. Long story short, they want ANSI, specifically ANSI Z765 or Z765-2021 measurements, which iGUIDE provides. How cool is that? Okay.
Awesome. So no questions. You guys can find this recording on our YouTube channel. Go iGUIDE. Or just iGUIDE, sorry. And go ahead and do subscribe because we are releasing a lot more content coming up this next couple of months. So a lot more, especially more guests are coming on, a lot more topics. It'll be really fun.
All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Ali. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thanks so much.
Take care.